Hello, and thanks for joining the session. I'm going to be starting out a new project today, adding OAuth to Astrocasts. And we're going to be doing a lot of different OAuth connections. We're going to work with Twitch, we're going to work with YouTube, and we're going to work with Facebook. There's some things that we were working on in the last episode where we were actually working on building Astrocasts. And we have this little helper file set up where we were setting information on the Twitch API so that we could actually set up, or so that we could actually update the title using information gathered from the episode's title. So I want the episode right now to talk about something more relevant than what it does now, which is just Astrocast, yay. So just to show everyone where we were at and the kind of hoops we have to jump through here, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to have to use the OAuth dance to get access to my streams. So I'm going to get the URL stream, or get the authentication URL, print the URL, get the code from the command line. So I actually need to manually enter this code. Then we can get the access credentials using that code. So after that, I think we can actually do this correctly, though. We need access token. Here we go. We should be able to do this. So if we do this, we should be able to update the channel ID, or the status for the channel with what we're actually doing. So let's do, since I think this is a fun title anyway, let's keep this. We'll do something more related to OAuth. So let's find out what our current title actually is. Adding OAuth to Astrocasts. So let's do that. And then we'll kind of see what we have to jump through in order to get this to work. So I'm going to run this command now. So we'll go php. It's going to generate the OAuth URL that we'll have to redirect to. And it's going to redirect us to a URL that doesn't exist on our local environment. And I can copy this code. I'm going to paste that code here. And it should have done what it needed to do. So let's go check now and see. Reload this page. There we go. So it did actually do the work. Now the problem is I don't really want to go through these hoops every time I want to update the title. Ideally, I'd like to have this in the background actually doing some of this work for me automatically. So I need to store the information I get back. If we look to see, actually I want to double check. I want to print out what this access credentials looks like to see what other pieces of data we have in there. So I'm going to do this little dance again. Do a redirect. Ooh, no, that didn't do what I expected. I have to copy this correctly. There we go. All right, now use the new code that they gave me. Just double check that's not the same code. No, it's a different code, okay. All right, so things that we get from these access credentials are the actual access token, and then also the refresh token. So there's stuff that we're going to have to do in order to be able to do this stuff offline. So ideally, what I need to do is the very first time that I connect these things is I need to store this information in a place that I can use to use it later offline, so in the background. Then I need to be able to write some stuff to handle the case where the token expires so that we can refresh the token. It's not really clear to me if I have to do this on my own before this time expires. So I'm not sure what we're going to do there. The other thing is this is going to be for more like app level credentials. I'm going to have two levels. I'm going to have app user and app level and user level. The user level will be able to interact with users who sign up for Astrocast accounts and allow them to associate it with their Twitch account, their YouTube account, or their Facebook account. So there's things that you can do with Twitch like for example, these stream markers. So I don't know if that's just something I can do or other people can. I know there's clips and all these other sorts of things that are set up that potentially, if you're watching me on stream and you have an Astrocast account, if you're doing some sort of discussion there, I'd like it to potentially reflect to your Astrocast account itself. So that's kind of the long-term goal for this stuff. So the first app that we have, though, is actually for app level. So this is the one that is using the scope that gives channel editor. This gives me the ability to change the status of the stream that's associated with the user that's logged in. My normal users aren't going to want me to be able to change their stream title, and I don't really want to. I don't really know what I want to be able to do there yet, but I know that I don't need channel editor privileges. So the first thing I need to make sure to keep in mind is to differentiate the access tokens that I'm using for the system level Twitch application versus the user level Twitch application. So if I start talking about that in the future, that is why I'm doing so. So the things that we're going to work on, we'll just keep these on a high level so we can see when we've completed more or less the connection to these different types. The things I'm going to look at today is trying to figure out a model. I need to do an app level model and a per user model. So actually figuring out how I want to, what information I need to store and how I want to access it. And then I'm going to find out a way to persist it. I'm thinking about trying to do something without Doctrine, or without Doctrine ORM anyway, but that may be out of scope for this. But at least for the app level stuff, I don't know if I need to create a full-on entity for that. And then I think we might need to have some sort of service layer, essentially encapsulating all of this work. The keeping track of the connection information, actually doing the authentication flow, creating this Twitch API object is probably something that we would need to do depending on how re-authentication works or refreshing the tokens. I don't know if the app or if this client itself does that. So if it doesn't do that, then we're going to have to find a way to do that on our own. And essentially, this is all just procedural code. We need to make sure that we're able to do some more interesting things with it. And then finally, potentially contributing the client credentials functionality to the Twitch API, which is what we've done here. I temporarily tried to use the client credentials flow. And what that did was, it was essentially the same thing that was there before, except that it was using grant type client credentials. The problem was the actual token that we got back wasn't usable for the channels API, which is what we were using to set the update. So this API wasn't accepting the client credentials access token in order to update the status. So it was kind of a bummer. We were really hoping, both myself and the people in chat were hoping that we could avoid having to do this URL authentication dance, but it just doesn't seem like it was going to be the place to go. So we already have this functionality sort of working from a procedural point of view for the Twitch API. The other things that we're going to do once we get the Twitch API done is have to switch to both YouTube and Facebook. And I'm hoping their APIs are relatively similar. I'm guessing that the OAuth parts will be similar enough that whatever information we're storing for the credentials when we're actually storing the tokens will work for those as well. But maybe we'll try to not worry about that just yet. All right, so starting off, we're going to look at the model. So if we look at the things that we're currently getting back, let's copy this into our little test scratch file here. All right, so we have an access token, an expiration date, and a refresh token. So the thing I'm not sure about is whether this expiration is for the access token or for the refresh token. I'm guessing it's maybe for the access token. We could check the docs to see which it is, but maybe we don't have to worry about that just yet. I don't know if we need to keep the scope. So let's actually go and find out Twitch no, it's not that one. Let's do Twitch API. Because what I think we need to make sure is what we need to re-authenticate or refresh the token. So let's check this out. The Twitch API uses traits quite liberally. So let's see here. Let's go to the authentication trait, refresh token. Okay, so revoke token. All right, so it looks like we don't need to keep the scope. So I'm not sure. I mean, we could keep it just so that we have the information in case we need it later. So I think we might persist it for now and then drop it later if we need it. I'd hate to find out later that we need it for some reason. Okay, so for the app tokens, we can actually do Twitter app token, or app OAuth token. All right, so if that's going to be our object, we need the actual access token. We'll need expires in. So we'll probably want to convert this to a date time so that we can know when it expires. Because if I just say 15047 without any other information, that's not going to be super useful. Expires in, let's do refresh token. Scope, an array, and then let's do type, token type. All right, so we need to find a way to persist this. And this is where I was trying to figure out if we actually want to create an entity to represent this or not. I sort of feel like we don't. So let's see. Oh, so this is, it's not Twitter either. So what we could do is abstract this a bit more and say app OAuth and type, and this could be then Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. So if we wanted to make this a generic entity and create things like that, I think we could maybe do this. This would probably need to be unique because it wouldn't make sense for the app to have more than one of those. So I think this might be a good way to go. The only thing I'm not sure about is the scope, but I think I'll leave that as an array for now. And I think I will end up doing just doing entities, because I think that would probably be the easiest thing to do. I'm trying to be a little bit pragmatic here. So app OAuth credentials, and then let's figure out what we need to do for the user as well. So instead of app, we're going to have user. I'm going to need probably the user ID. And we're not going to have a unique one of these, but we would have a unique constraint across these. So we'll do unique user ID type. So we should only ever have one of these at any given time of a given type for a specific user. Okay, so I think this is probably what we would do. The question is whether this is actually going to be the same for YouTube and Facebook. So I'm tempted to not assume that's the case. But let's just start here. Let's start this way, because I think this is probably the easiest way to go. Okay, so let's use maker bundle. See if we can make our life super easy here. So it's bin console. Actually, let's see where we're at. Let's get rid. I guess let's add this here. I don't know if we need to keep that, but we have it if we need it later, at least if it's in here. And I think the composer diffs are just the Twitch API. So let's see here. So we're starting from scratch. All right. So let's do bin console, make entity, and let's make our first entity. We got to go in our scratch file. So we'll do app OAuth credentials. I think I'll probably just make this first entity today. We'll do property name, type. Let's see what I can do here. Array of op, no. I think it's probably just going to be string. Going to be null in the database, no. Let's see, the next one we need token type. And this can be a string. Token type, access token. Expires in. So I think I'll do expires at. Wow. It automatically detected I wanted to do a date time. That's kind of cool. Okay, add another property. Okay, so let's do refresh token. It's another string. And the last one was scope. This is actually going to, oh, field length, sorry. Wow, no. Another property, okay, scope. And so here we're actually going to do array. So let's see here, simple array. I want to see what the difference is between those. Doctrine, simple array versus array. What happens if you typo in that command line? Then you have to start again. You either have to start again or, oh, I see. So I did a typo. Yeah, I'll have to go check that out in a bit. Josh is giving me some help here from chat. Array versus simple array. Implode value. So serialize. I think maybe I'll do JSON array. Oh, is it the JSON type? Leverage a new database feature for JSON fields. All right, so maybe I'll do JSON. All right, see if that's an option. It is. All right. Okay, so Josh isn't saying I did a typo. It's if I had done a typo, what would happen? Generally, you have to go into the generated code and just make the changes on your own. Can this field be null in the database? No. Okay, add another property. No. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is make a migration, but first I'm going to answer Josh's question by jumping into this class. So what I would have to do if I've made a typo, and I've actually done this before, is actually just go in and make the change before you do the migration, which makes a lot of sense to do if you haven't done the migration yet. If the entity is small enough and the error is annoying enough, I've actually gone in and redone the command line tool, just Control-C out of it and start it over again. But that's not actually what I'm doing here. So the things that we had for constraints, I keep forgetting it's in here. All right, so we want unique on type. So let's see what we need to do for that. So we need to go to type. Let's see, unique. Okay. I didn't think I had to do it here, though. Unit constraint. It's on the table. I guess that maybe makes sense. All right, name and column. So let's do repository class. We actually need to do table. Okay, so we'll do name. I need to, why is that not coming in though? Oh, I don't want to specify the name actually. All right, so I want to do unique constraints. Is this not, why is this not working? So I have these in other places. I guess I have to go look at those. So entity, session, ORM table, unique constraints, project ID, and video. All right, and then video. Does that have? So I think I have slug as unique. Oh, okay. So that's what I was looking for. So I don't have to do anything with the table stuff I was creating, which makes my life easier. All right, so let's do unique true. A whole bunch of getters and whatnot. All right, so now I can do make, well, I'm not actually going to use make migration. I'm going to do doctrine migration diff. And what that does is it looks at the classes to see which classes or entities have different properties than what the database actually has. All right, so it's auto-generated. Let's see here, create sequence. All right, drop sequence and drop the table. Okay. All right, so this should work. That'll create these things for us. So let's go ahead and run the migration. So doctrine migration migrate. Cool, so now we actually have a table in the database. So we can start working with it. Now I need to figure out how to actually use something with this. Okay, so we have app level model. So we have a general idea for how to do that. We're gonna scratch this plan. So I don't think it makes sense to do that. So, okay, so we have the app level done. I think we need to work on the service layer in just a minute. Because ideally, we need to have some sort of controller. So if we look at our current Twitch controller, we already have a verify request. So this is Twitch subscription. This is for the webhook subscriptions. I think what I need to do here is do something similar now, but we're going to do Twitch. Let's do Twitch app subscription. No, not subscription. Let's see here. Let's see what OAuth calls it. Reference, apps and authentication, getting tokens. So I don't remember what that step is called. Validate a request, user request. validating a request. All right, so let's do is that what it is? So if developers wish validated on a recurring interval. User opt to disconnect your integration from their Twitch accounts. Okay, access token. All right. Redirect your registered redirect URI. All right, so let's call it redirect. We'll call it Twitch OAuth app redirect. So we're going to have another URL that is specific for the user redirect as well. So I can put a placeholder in for that now. So user redirect. This way we can be very explicit about which things are happening in which controller. It also means I need to go update my development app while we're here to use the correct URL. So view apps, the test one, change the URL to app. Okay, so the information that we will get from this redirect includes the code. So let's first make sure we break this stuff. We don't want to do anything there yet. For the app redirect, we can get the code. Double check that's what it's called. Redirect URI scope. ID token, access token. Okay, so it is just going to be code. So we'll do code. And from here, we can then use exactly what we had before in our K file. So once we get to that token, we can use the Twitch API to get the access credentials. So let's move this code up here. So rather than getting the code from readline, we're going to get the code from the actual redirect of the request. Now we need to actually get the Twitch API. So let's do, let's see, am I doing subscription handled? I'm not using it in the other places. So I think maybe I'm going to just get it for here. Oh, we need to name this. So we'll do redirect app and redirect user. So let's go in here and request to have a Twitch client. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so here's the other problem, and this is going to be one of those cases where auto wiring is going to bite us. If we look here, the Twitch API that we get is configured with a bunch of information. And information is specific to the app. And if we are going to have two separate apps, this is going to be a problem because we're going to have two instances of Twitch API with different options, and we won't be able to just type hint Twitch API, which is kind of a pain. So I need to figure out what we're going to do there. So right now, we do have a Twitch config, which was something that I set up to make it easier to work with these. What we're going to have to do is probably rename this now to be Twitch app config. Let's go into Twitch. Twitch config. So this is actually going to have to be renamed. So let's rename it to Twitch app config. And where this is going to be bad is that we're getting this information and actually I wonder if I can undo that. So if we actually have separate classes rather than using the same class, it makes type hinting a lot easier. So I think we'll leave it like this. So this is, I'm going to get rid of this. All right, so app client ID, and I'm going to create a new class that's identical to this. And we're going to call it Twitch user config. And Twitch app, Twitch user. Awesome. All right, so that can be handled later. If we go into services, now we're going to create Twitch app config. And where this is going to be annoying is what to do app dot and app dot. I won't need it there because the hub is only going to be specific to the app. All right, so then we also have to update here. This is where it's going to get really ugly. App. It's going to annoy me at some point. Then we're going to create the same set for Twitch. We don't need to switch it for that. We should though. So this is going to be the actual app ID, or the user ID for the app itself. We won't need one of those at all for the user version. Might as well rename this while we're here. So app, we're going to do app, user app. All right. And then if we go back down here, we forgot to do app dot. Okay, and then I'm wishing now I had used a different name than app for the app versus user, but if it really becomes a problem later, I can fix it. So let's do app. Okay, we'll do some find and replaces. All right, so this should, in theory, give us the same thing, except we don't need those values. So now we have a Twitch app config. We're going to also create a Twitch user config. And we need Twitch app. So here we can do user, but a couple of these we're not going to need at all. So we don't need hub secret, and we don't need user ID for Twitch user config, which means this gets easier. This is actually a really good reminder for me that had I tried to make this one object and just use it in two different ways, it actually would have made life a little more complicated because I would have had to worry about these values that aren't super important. So this class is now a lot easier. The user config is only ever going to need the client ID or the client secret. So that's good. So we have this set up correctly now. Let's see, where are we at? So we have the values. Now we need to consume this correctly. So let's see where something is being used. I think I'm just going to inline it for now in the controller. So this is not going to be using dependency injection, but I'm okay with that at this point. So we're going to use the Twitch app config. So we're going to get that, and then we're going to copy this configuration information. All right. Just so we can see if it works. So the client ID we're going to get from the Twitch app config. Get app client ID. And we're going to get the same thing for the secret. For the URI, we actually don't need the URI. And I don't think we need the scope either. Not for this particular case. Argument missing. This doesn't matter. Okay. So this should be enough. So we're actually passing in the app config. We're not doing anything fancy here with the Twitch API. So we should be fine. So if we redirect, it should create that for us. So what do we do with the access credentials? So we know what those look like, I think. So let's copy this out for now. Okay, so we need to create a new instance of app user configuration. No. What is our new entity called? Twitch app. No. This one here. So we'll need to create a new instance of this. So let's do this. We're going to need the repository. So we'll do the OAuth credentials repository. So we can do some lookups on that. So let's do find one by. So find or create? No. We'll do we have it? No, we don't need a type. Oh yeah, we do. So we need type Twitch. And I think this is going to throw an exception if that can't be found. So let's see what happens. Let's do throw E, just so we can see what it looks like here. Okay, so we're going to do OAuth credentials equals this. So we'll get the Twitch one if they exist, and then otherwise we're going to create a new one. So if not app OAuth credentials, then we want to actually create a new one. All right, and in this case, we also want to persist the object. So we're going to need one more object here. We're going to need the object manager. So if we are not able to get it from the repository, we have to persist it. So object manager persist. So we need to persist the new one we've just generated. Otherwise, when we flush at the end, it won't actually do any changes. So object manager flush, this will make sure that any changes that we make here will work correctly. So now that we have this information, now that we have this object in existence, either the existing one or the new one, what we can do is change all these values. So we'll do set access token to, what is this? There we go. Access credentials, access token. So we're going to do a bunch of these. We have set scope to scope, set refresh token, and then token type. Oh, no, it's just, yeah, it is token type. Okay. The other thing we have to do here, I just remembered, is we need to make sure and set this to have a set type of Twitch. So I should eventually make this type be some sort of global value, probably maybe on this object itself. So I might as well go do that now. So let's do const type Twitch. No. Otherwise, I'm going to run into the problem eventually of referencing strings by a string, which is going to get me in trouble. So let's do app OAuth credentials, face type Twitch, and we'll do the same thing up here. And actually, I could probably do some interesting things here. No, I'll do, because if I go into this repository, let me do that. So what I can do here is do some helper things. So I'm going to get rid of these for now. I can do public function find Twitch. Now let's do find or create Twitch. And so I don't even have to pass anything to it, which is kind of nice. So if I do this same functionality there, it makes life a little easier for us. So let's go this way. All right, so this, and then throw E, I'm fine with that. If we don't get one, create one. Let's see if I can get the object manager. We'll get the entity manager, and then we'll persist it. Unhandled exception, okay, that's fine. And then return. All right, cool. So I think I like this much better. So I can use the repository. This probably could be a service instead, but putting it all in the repository kind of makes me feel better. So what we can do is change all of this to this. Find or create for Twitch. And that stuff's done. So sweet. All right, so once we do that, we set the access token to the updated access token. We set the scope, we set the refresh token, we set the token type. I'm actually going to reorganize these a bit. There we go. All right, so in theory, this should, the very first time, create a brand new OAuth token or app OAuth credentials entity, and it should set it with the appropriate information. And then we should only ever have one of these in existence. So we can test this pretty easily, which we haven't done any testing yet of running this, so the code may not even compile at this point, but we should be able to test it like this. Twitch API, URL. So we should be able to do this, and when it actually gives us the access credentials, it's going to redirect now to the correct URL, which I think I need to switch here. So let's do what this is supposed to be is OAuth app redirect. All right. So essentially, we don't actually have to do anything after this point. I'm going to open up Navicat just to look into the actual database when we get to that point. All right, so let's see what we can do. Let's see if it even runs. Okay, so it gave me a URL. So this URL should redirect me back to the new controller we've created. Not found. No route found. Forget Twitch OAuth app redirect. Okay, pretty sure it's there. Route Twitch method get Twitch OAuth app. Twitch OAuth app redirect. What Twitch subscription? Yeah, that's there. So there's something here. Let's do some debugging. Debug routes. Router. So there's get and post for Twitch. Twitch OAuth app. Oh, do they have the same name? That might be the problem. Let's see here. Yep, that's the problem. So since these have the same name, this is actually the route that's being picked up. So we want OAuth user redirection. Let's see if that makes a difference here. Yeah, okay, so we have app redirection. So since this URL, or since this route was given this name, this is the name that was used. So this is the only route that was available. It overwrote this value. All right, so now we should be able to reload this. Undefined index token type. Well, that's good, actually. So it got pretty far into it. Twitch controller. I'm going to reformat this real quick. And we have about 10 minutes to see if we can actually get this in the database or not. So let's see here. Got stuck on which one? Token type. Okay, so token type wasn't actually there. So let's do DD access credentials. Actually, let's do code just to see if it even is reading the code correctly. All right, so it did get code of S blah, blah, blah. So that's what we were looking for. The access credentials, missing client ID. All right. So what's going on here is we created these new configs, which are actually pretty nice. The problem is when we were changing these, we changed where they came from. So they came from twitch.app and twitch.user. We created twitch.app and twitch.user. We're getting Twitch app, Twitch user, but we didn't actually change the .env files. Dist, so let's do Twitch. Was there another? I thought there was another Twitch value we were looking at in there. Twitch hub secret, that's what it was. All right, so let's go back here. So I need to do this in my .env file as well. And then we need to do the except I've lost my mouse. Let's see if that can get running again. That's fun. All right, well, let's see how far I can get without my mouse. So we don't need hub secret or Twitch ID. So we need Twitch app secret. Oh. Didn't get very far without my keyboard, or without my mouse. Let's see, I have a different solution here. At least I thought I did. Oh, there it is. Let's see if this works. There we go. It's going to be nice and noisy probably. So replace all, and then .env. So I need to go change this here. I'm not going to bother doing the user stuff just yet because we don't have the proper values for those anyway. All right. So the problem was that we were actually getting values, they were empty. So when it's complaining that it's missing the client ID, it's because the string wasn't actually set. There we go, access credentials. Let's see what we get now. Missing redirect URI. All right, so we needed that anyway, which is kind of ridiculous. So let's go Twitch controller. And then we're going to need to get the router generator. The Symfony one. Generate, and we have Twitch OAuth app redirection. Oh, but not there. All right, let's see if this works. Got a little further that time. Didn't work right. Oh, I didn't spell this correctly. All right, so I need to generate a full URL. So this is generating an absolute path. I need to generate an actual URL. So we'll do URL generator interface. We need absolute URL. Actually, before I do that, I just want to show what was happening there, because it wasn't necessarily obvious. So let's do DD. We'll do options. All right, so options. So it's not generating the full URL, so that's the problem here. And if we do that other bit, it should work just fine. So we'll do no options in URL generator interface, absolute URL. Awesome. All right, so we got options and we got access credentials. So it actually gave us the right information back. I don't know if it's actually going to have put anything in the DB because I think DD probably killed that possibility. Podcast. Didn't we run? Oh, wrong project. There we go. Yeah, so there's no rows yet. So let's go ahead and not do this DD until the end. I'm guessing it may actually have already consumed this code. So this code that it had passed, so I'm guessing we're going to get an access credentials error here. Yeah, okay, so no token type because access credentials is actually empty. So this is actually probably a good place for me to add some additional stuff. So let's do, let's see what it looks like. Oh. Yeah, so we can do if if message. So if there's these two things, let's die and probably do something weird. So we'll say echo. Ideally, we want to do something more interesting than that, but at least for now, we'll know what's going on. So what that means is I need to return to this command and generate a new link. So I need to go through this process again, which will generate a brand new URL redirect, which should have a code that we can actually consume. So this is good. Non-null violation expires at. Okay, so we need to do something with that. So let's do app OAuth credentials set expires at new now, and we'll do time zone UTC, and then expires at add date interval T. I need to double check what that spec is. Example P2Y. Okay. So we want to do P $access credentials expires in S. So this is going to create a new datetime object from now, and then it's going to create an expires at that expires in seconds into the future. All right, so now we have to generate another URL go through this process again. Unknown or bad format. Oh, I wonder if I need something else. P2. Oh, does it need T? I think it needs T. Okay. So P is for things like years and things, and T, so anything that comes between P and T would be like years and things like that. So if they have the example here, there's a break. So anything after the T represents time, and seconds are time. So PT0S. All right, so let's generate another URL. All right, we didn't get an error, and we got some information, and we have our token stored. Yay! All right, so we got scope, channel editor. Let's make sure the refresh token looks right. It's V8 something TU. Yep. Expires at 11:29, which is tomorrow. How many seconds is this? So that's little under 3 hours. Is that right? And what? UTC. So right now it's 11:04 UTC. So 3 hours from now would be 12:12. So 2:04. Well, 2:45. That's close, I guess. So I think that's working. Access token, bearer type, Twitch. Cool. So what we can do now is write a command. Ooh, actually, no, we're out of time. So I got to stop for now. What we can do now that this is actually working is that tomorrow we can create a command that will reference this same token. And we can work through the refresh logic on that to see how that works. And the command that we're going to write, just so that we know, I can actually create it now, will be app Twitch publish title, or publish metadata. And so what we want to do with this, do you want to run? Oh, no. We want make command. There we go. So what we're going to do with this is use the same information we just created. So we're probably going to have to duplicate this logic up here, at least initially, to make sure that we're creating the same options. So we're going to pretty quickly get to the point where we're going to be doing stuff with some sort of service layer, so that we can say, get me the app Twitch connection, and then do things with it. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. If you have questions, feel free to drop them into chat, ping me on Twitter, or however you like to get a hold of me. Thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.